Yeah, there you go. We started a thing.
Yay!
Look at that. I know. I know. That's so good. All right. Format. How are we gonna actually do it? Okay. Shall we just?
Well, I suppose, hello everybody, and welcome to Final Boss Banter, the first episode, the
Yeah. Woo!
introduction of our
We made it
podcasting
past the
series.
admin.
Oh gosh, admin. Uh,
Right. Carry on. You're doing a really good job there. Carry on. Carry on.
no, I was just saying, if you are not someone who I have pestered to say, I'm starting a new podcast, I'm very excited. It's going to be about games and comics and nerdy things and sometimes cosplay and just random things that are going on in technology and possibly some like memes because I'm trying to get into memes because I realize that in order to look at technology and where it's going, you kind of have to be part of that kind of like social media trending society. You can't stay out of it. So yes, so here we are.
That was a you know what? That was a pretty good intro. I like that. That was deep in your soul. I think you needed to like let that out, innit? That's good. Yeah, cool. Um I feel like we should just go for like introductions and then we can go for the questions if you want to do that. I'm down for whatever really.
Yep, I think that's a good plan.
All
So
right,
who
cool.
are
So
you?
when I say introductions though, I mean like I'm gonna answer in a sense in a way of like I'm gonna use one of these questions as an intro.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not just gonna I think that would be all right, who am I? I'm Shaib. The end. I don't know. Nah, yeah, so I'm Shaib. I'm 31 as of 9 days ago, so that was fun. Yeah, and so the first question I've got written here actually is what's the first video game you remember playing, and how did it influence your interest in gaming? And I think that's kind of a good question to like help you to get to know me as well. Um, and I think obviously I'm 31 as of 9 days ago, and I've probably been playing video games since I was 5. So that's like a good like 28 years. Wait, is that 28? Maths. I can't do maths. There you
Sorry,
go. You
I
learned
can't
something else
help you.
about me. I can't do maths. um, wait, what actually is it? When I was 5. So like yeah, 30 no 26 years. So 26 years. Um, first video games. I'm trying to think like I think it was Sonic the Hedgehog. I think it was like Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Um, and I remember it was such a big deal for us to have. I think it was the Mega Drive because I don't even think it was ours. I think we borrowed it from someone.
Mm.
Um, it could have been ours, but I don't really remember seeing it that often. So it was either between I was always asleep when they played it, or we borrowed it. I don't actually know the details of that. Um, my more distinct memories. So I'm gonna say Sonic probably was the first. I'm gonna say yeah. Like if I had to put one, I would probably say Sonic because the other games after that I have more strong memories with. But I'm trying to remember. This is like 26 years ago. It's a long time ago, isn't it? Um, but no, wait, longer than that. I think. Wait, was it longer than that? No, no, it's probably
I,
about 26.
I don't know. My math is not that fast.
Yeah, I think it is about 26. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm, yeah, you know what's messing me up is because 2024, like, and then when you minus the 24 off of that, you're like, wait, 2 years before, like 98. So that, yeah, I think that does track. Man, time moves fast. That's scary.
Mm.
Um, but anyway, yeah. So Sonic the Hedgehog, Sega on a Sega Mega Drive, um, and yeah, but the games after that was basically. Street Fighter Alpha 3. And that was the first game I completed as well. That was the first ever game I fully completed. And I remember I was really trying to complete it with like Ryu. I think I was trying to complete it with the main character, right? And I just couldn't do it. And eventually I used Sagat, who's like the most OP character. And back then they didn't really have balancing, right? Because you
Yeah.
can't just update balance it. So I remember like completing it with him, and I was like, oh yeah, I just sat there while the credits were playing. I was like, damn, that I just and I remember being alone. I don't think anyone was there, or they were bored of watching or something like that. Like my other family members,
Yeah.
and I think then Fear Factor as well. That was another one. But that was like I'm pretty sure back then it was like an 18, so they only let me watch certain bits. Um, and then obviously like my most like integral, most important video game was and is Metal Gear Solid. I think that was probably the second game I ever completed. And I probably back then watched it through like my family play it through like at least three times before I completed it. It was just I
Mm.
don't know what it was about that game. It was just so interesting to me. I think it was just the atmosphere of it was just crazy. Like because back then there was like the faces weren't that good, right? So
Yeah.
like the faces were so like square, but because they do the little codec calls, they basically would get a facial expression like that. So they were really smart how they did it. So it always felt like you knew the characters even though you couldn't see the characters, if that makes sense. It
Yeah.
was yeah, no, it was good, but yeah, I think pretty much from then I probably have a bunch of stories I shouldn't tell as well, so I'm gonna keep those. But yeah, like a lot of those stories are with me getting in trouble because of video games. So like the passion runs deep, definitely. But yeah, you know what else I remember as well is that back then as well, like um, games used to be video game stores used to be more like interactive. Like you could go in and I don't know, maybe because you live like in London and stuff, like it might be different for you, but where in my small town,
Mm.
like the few video game stores we did have, like they were quite interactive, and then that slowly like went away. So I do remember going into those stores like a lot and like seeing what they had and that kind of stuff. You know, that period of time with games and stuff, it was so good. And I think even now you can still see that because they're remaking a lot of those games, right? Like from that like time period. So you can tell like it was a special time. Um, but yeah, I would probably say those games for me, and I feel like that gives a good sense of like who I am. Like, yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog, which I'm still a mild fan of.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like a diehard fan for them, but like I'm trying to play through those. Street Fighter. I don't want to talk about number five. Number five was a bad period for us all. But six has like reignited everything, so that's good. And obviously Metal Gear, like I, I won't. I don't think I'll go into it too much, but obviously we've got the new Metal Gear coming out. You know, like we'll have to save that for probably a whole episode by itself, maybe, or maybe later in this episode because we do
Yeah.
have a question about favorite video game of all time. So maybe I'll save it for then. But yeah, we'll have to leave that for now. Um, but yeah, that's me. There you go.
Yeah. Interesting. Um, that's so fascinating because I also grew up in a household where gaming was just the norm. Um,
Mm,
like my earliest memory is watching my mum play Little Big Adventure with Twinson, trying to rescue his pregnant girlfriend in her red jumpsuit and ponytail. It's an interesting game, and they're actually it's interesting because you were saying about remastering games. They're actually remastering the whole series at the moment, and I'm waiting patiently because I've never actually played it. I just watched my mum play the whole thing. I sat on her lap and watched her do it. But for me, oh, earliest video game I remember, my mum was very um because so I'm dyslexic, but I didn't know I was dyslexic until about the third year of uni. And so there are lots of things that have been a challenge to me throughout life. And my mum kind of recognized that. And so a lot of the games that I played when I was very young were all educational because my mum recognized that I didn't learn in the same way as everyone else. And so she bought me educational games. She's like, you can learn through this because that seems to work for you. So the earliest game I remember is Microsoft's My Personal Tutor, which is so funny because me and my mum still have like ongoing jokes. So there's a bit in My Personal Tutor where you finish a bit of it. It's all educational about like nouns and reading books and how to use a computer and just like general knowledge for the like primary school age group. But once you finish a section, it's like, oh, press the button to go on. And it says it like that with that weird inflection. And so sometimes me and my mum will be doing something and it's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Go on. And it's so funny because no one understands why we're doing it. But it's from that game because obviously I was playing it and I was playing it at my own pace and just enjoying myself. And when you hover over the button, it says it every time. So sometimes I'd be hovering over the button and I'd be like, oh no, I'm not sure I want to. I was like, oh, but maybe I should. Oh, but I'm not sure. So she would just hear, go on, constantly as I was playing. Um, but yeah, I also liked Adiboo, which a lot of people I speak to have never heard of. I don't know what Adiboo was. He was I don't know what he was. He was yellow and he was kind of cool and they made him grow up and I didn't really like him when he grew up. I liked him when we were the same age, like 5 or 6, I don't know. But he also had a dog that was a sucker dog that so instead of having legs it had like a suction cup that it bounced around on. And then there were some bits of it that were just incredibly wholesome. Like there was a bit where you had to cook, and if you got the ingredients wrong, then the pie turned out awful. But this monster would come past the
This
window.
thing.
Yep, that's Adiboo. And it's like he'd come past the window and try and eat the cake, and if it was disgusting, he'd be like, ugh, and then he'd knock it on the floor and just walk off. But if it was nice, then he'd eat it and he'd be like, mmm. And it's like, this is an interesting interaction because there aren't a lot of games, especially at that time, where there was a monster and you're not fighting the monster, you're just making pies for the monster. Oh, I actually never played that one because I played it on the PC.
I was thinking there was a. This looks like a sequel of some kind.
It had a lot of sequels. Um, I also very much loved Carmen Sandiego, the Lost in Time one. Oh my gosh, how I loved Carmen Sandiego. She was so cool. And it's like so suave. It's like when I grow up, it's like I want to be that kind of like that confident and beautiful. And it's like I realize she's the villain of the piece, but she was just so cool. It's like, what kind of villain wears red? It's like the most distinctive color and still gets away with it. It's like, oh, I want that tenacity. But definitely my favorite video game of all time is Orly's Draw a Story because nothing has ever come close to it, and it is the only game I know of that is a Caribbean themed video game that's not fighting, and all of the voice actors Caribbean. The music for it was from a Caribbean steel band, and it's like everything about it, the stories, the people in it. Because I lived both here and there, when I was younger, it was a way for me to kind of connect with the kind of dysphoria of feeling like I didn't really fit into the British culture, but then I didn't really
Mm,
fit into the Caribbean culture because I was British. And so it was feeling like I didn't really belong anywhere, but I was connected to both cultures. And it's like that video game for me was just a beautiful connection back to my Caribbean culture that I still love. And it's like nothing has ever come close to it because no one has ever remade it. And it had a feature in it where when you're doing the stories, you can either take a picture that's already drawn and like color them in, or you could draw with the pen. Like it was kind of like paint, but better. It was better than paint. And you could draw your own characters and color them in. And the way that it was programmed is that if you drew a circle and you tried to color it in and you pressed on it and you just went like that, it always colored in the lines, even if it was a circle you had drawn. Or, and I discovered this far too late by accident, if you clicked and held down, like I think it was a hexagon appeared, and it just slowly grew to fill the shape you had drawn or that was drawn. And I was just like, oh gosh, why doesn't paint have this? Why is Photoshop so behind? And for a game at that time, it was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I actually, because I've been trying to track down the developer, I managed to track him down on LinkedIn, and I messaged him to talk about the game. He was like, are you going to remake it? Will you be uploading it to Steam at any point? I'd really like to play it again. And he was like that he hasn't, like, no one's asked him about it in years, which fair enough. It's from like the late 90s. But
He replied.
he did reply, yeah, the same day as
No
well.
way.
And I was like, that makes me feel even better, because they always say don't meet your heroes, but it's like that game for me is just amazing. And I don't think any game will ever top it as my favorite game, because it was so engaging. And like even the fact that the undo and redo buttons were men in little kind of like Rastafarian hats, and so when you pressed them they made like a little sound and there was a little animation. So it was like for a child, just like everything was happening, but it was so engaging. And she had like a little animal sidekick that was a frog with a hat.
Wait, so hold on. Go back to he replied. So he what did he actually say then? He said
um
he was not going to.
he was saying that actually, unfortunately, he'd um he'd lost all of the source code for it, and the IP belonged to
Ah,
Borderbund. And when I was looking up Borderbund, this is not exactly accurate, but basically Borderbund were bought by somebody, then they were dissolved into another section of a different company, then that company I think was bought by someone else, and then that company went defunct. So it's just kind of like, okay, if they owned the IP address, who owns it now? Because it's been through so many different changes. And like Borderbund was one of my favorite game engines. I think we spoke about it before, because like they made some really interesting adult games but really wholesome children's games as well. um like all about kind of like different cultures, like imparting manners and being kind to people.
hmm.
Not their adult games. Their adult games was strangely sexual, but their children games were very much kind of like, be kind to each other, be nice, like help people, not just to get something, but just to be kind to people. Don't expect that people will give you something, but just be nice and just be a nice
Hmm.
functioning member of society. And that children can ride hot air balloons, which I think is slightly questionable, but we'll brush past that. um oh but yeah, so definitely my favorite game. I would love for him to remake like a modern version of it, or even to
Sorry, I didn't mean to
remake it.
derail you. I just found it so interesting that he replied. Like that's kind of crazy to me.
It is, because I didn't expect him to reply. It's like that's only the second time in my life that I've met someone who I'm like, I actually think you're amazing and I love your work. The first time I was in Paris and I met a lady who makes she made corsets. Unfortunately, she passed away, I think 2 weeks after I met her. And it was so cool because I met her and I was like, oh, I don't know what to say. I'm so impressed by your work. And she looked at me kind of oddly and she's like, did you make that yourself? Because I was wearing like a hair clip that had like a tassel along the bottom, and it was like a velvet circle with lots of diamantes on it. And I was like, yeah, I did. And she's like, oh, I've actually just made some of those very similar to sell in my store. They're coming out next week. And I was like, my hero and my minds are on track. How exciting! So it's nice that like the two times that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna contact my hero in some way, um it's been kind of like, oh, you're a nice person. You're exactly the way I thought you would be. And it's like, in some ways it kind of it changes the way that you look at the media as well, because especially like when I think about like random sidetrack like Death Stranding. I think that game is amazing and incredible, and I cannot wait to play the second one. But then when you hear Miyazaki speak about it and what he was trying to create, and like what everything.
You mean Kojima?
Sorry, Kojima. Yeah. Sorry, my mistake. But when you hear him speak about it, it's kind of like it brings a new lease of life to it. Um, and it's just
Yeah, I have a lot of. I mean, if we're talking about this, I have a lot of mixed emotions on it
go on.
because like I think it's a good game as he's a very good storyteller. Yeah, so
Mm,
the some of the stories in it are amazing, but in terms of the gameplay, like loop, like like a gameplay loop, right, is like something that you'll do continuously and you find so interesting that you feel like you want to do that same thing again and again and again. So like Street Fighter, right? You like, you know, playing, fighting someone, and so that loop and that system that keeps recaptivating you again, right?
mm,
And that's where I get a bit hesitant on Death Stranding, where the visuals are good and like there's a lot of elements of it that are good, but the loop itself feels like, what were you going for exactly? Um, but that's the funny thing. Like, I feel like he really knows how to write characters. Like one of my favorite characters in that is Mama. Her storyline is like heart wrenching. It's so good. But then other characters for me fell a bit flat. Um, so I don't know. I have a very complicated like feelings towards it. And obviously, Metal Gear is one of my favorite games of all time. So it's like he made that, right? So I know, like, someone said something to me actually. He was a really massive Metal Gear fan as well. He basically said, Death Stranding is what you get when you have uh, no restrictions and unlimited creativity.
yeah.
Like Metal Gear is more like, I think they had a goal in some sense, or uh, Konami was probably restraining him, right?
Yeah.
And Death Stranding is basically Kojima unrestrained. And so he made the case that you need restraint sometimes, like, and I find it hard to disagree with him, but at the same time, I like what they did with the game as well. So it's very mixed emotions, like, yeah.
Yeah. It's. I think it's one of those things that I do wonder where triple A games are going, because like indie games will always be indie games. They'll go in
Mhm.
all directions, like going backwards, forwards, looking at different mediums. So like the creativity will always be there. And so you never really know where that's going, and that's quite exciting. But with triple A games, I feel like a lot of them are moving more towards oh, what is it called? Like movie style.
That's true. That's very true, actually. Yeah.
Oh, like what's the game? Is it The
God
Quarry?
of God of
Sorry, you
War.
know
I
names are
mean,
not my thing. Oh, there's a game with werewolves. One second.
oh, is it not 1896 or something like that?
Nope,
The Order.
it is The Quarry.
Oh,
Okay, I was right. On this occasion, I got it correct. But so in The Quarry, there is an option to pre-pick the options that you'd pick if you were playing the game. You
oh
know, like the
yeah,
quick time events. You
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
pre-pick them at the beginning and just watch it like a movie.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Mm. And I was like, I wonder if more games will do that, because I don't know, because it's that thing of the when you think about the cost of going to the cinema or buying a movie on Prime, it is not equivalent to the cost of buying a game. And so to buy a game that you're not planning to play, to just watch it like a movie, it's like, why? The feature is really interesting, but why would you want that? Because
Wait,
no,
are you advocating for the feature, or you're saying?
I don't know. I am just curious, like either way, because I'm thinking about like with Metal Gear Solid, would you, even if you had played it, would you then want to just pre-pick things and be like, fail this one, succeed at this one, and then just watch it
I
happen?
see what you
And
mean.
then
Mm,
would you want to do that if you'd already played it to re-watch it to see the other things, or would you rather just play it through the chapters and be like, okay, that's what happens if that happens? And so
I'll
who
be
is
honest
that?
with you. I like the idea of the first one though. I'll be honest with you because I tell you why. Yeah,
Mm,
like it depends what mood I'm in.
yeah,
Because sometimes you want to do it the way you want to do it, and 9 times out of 10, I'll play it the same way. Like unless I'm trying to go for a platinum,
yeah,
like I'll pretty much play it. I'll play it like lore accurate, like how
okay,
I think the character would act. Like that's normally how I play it.
yeah,
And but sometimes like playing it like that is sort of like it makes it long. So before you're on the next section, it just is taking too long. Whereas like sometimes it's better just to watch it because you're just feeling like, okay, I've played this like 3, 4 times. I can cook my dinner, and then when I turn around to watch it, like it's on a section, like I still know what's going on. So
yeah,
I'm kind of, I think what I would say, if you're playing something like for the first time, no, I wouldn't necessarily want to watch it. Um, but if it's like my second or third playthrough, or I've played it a couple of times, then yeah. Where it gets tricky, I tell you where it gets tricky. Yeah, it gets tricky when the games are too expensive at the start. So like, if you can't afford it,
mm,
like there's some games that I haven't been able to afford. So I'm like, I don't want to get spoiled, so I might as well just watch someone play a whole playthrough. Because even though it's not me playing it, it's still sort of like you're kind of getting a similar experience. So that's one thing where it's like I can't afford it. And then the second thing is like I maybe can afford it, but I don't want to buy it because it's potentially a bad game. So I can give you a recent example of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, where it came
yeah,
out. It was really expensive when it came out, but at the same time, like I wanted to know what happens in the story because it apparently is set in the same universe as the other Batman games. So I watched a bit of it, but I think I think they started rapidly slashing the prices. So I was like,
mm,
okay, maybe I'll just buy it eventually then, and I sort of stopped watching it. Um, but I felt bad because like I feel like my wife, like she wanted to like experience, like she'll watch it, right? She'll watch me play like the Batman games, and
yeah,
I got her into all of them. So I feel bad now because basically the first three are amazing, and then I have to look at her and I have to explain to her like this is technically the next story that we have to both go through, and apparently it's not that great. And also, none of the combat is the same. So that like because watching the norm the other Batman games, watching that combat is kind of interesting to watch, but
mm,
watching someone shoot something, it's not that interesting. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like the other games, you could like get a vent and smash the guy with a vent, and like that's like very like visually stimulating. But
mm,
shooting a guy with a gun, comparing to smashing a guy over the head with a ceiling fan, like it's not close. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just not close. So yeah, I think we'll probably will end up playing that, especially because it's really cheap now. But I get your point about what you're saying about would you want to watch it or not watch it.
mm,
But I think it's dependent. I think it depends. The one thing I will add though, the last thing I'll add on this is that I find it weird to pre-select within a game. Like it would make more sense to me to watch it on YouTube rather than within the game itself. That seems a bit odd.
that's what I mean. It's like I think it's an interesting idea, and it's like I'm not against it. I'm just wondering if it's worth the time it would take to program that to happen, and then to put like the separate UI controls in to do it, because obviously you then have to take out all of the gaming elements, and it would just be like gameplay cutscenes but not by anyone, and it's like, would you, how many people are going to want to watch that without the kind of like emotion of like a someone actually playing it attached to it? Because that's the thing about games. And I think that there are some people who will really enjoy that because it's not a bad feature, but like you said, what is it for?
It's yeah. I think like from an accessibility point of view, that
Mm.
sounds good to me. Like in that
Mm.
perspective, like you can't knock it. So that's one thing I'll say in their favor. Like fair play. Like yeah. The the other
Ooh.
thing I was gonna say is that I like them to test out new features.
Mm.
Um, because you just don't know, like you don't know if some of these things are gonna hit or not unless someone actually takes the time to implement it in a big way.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think it's a feature worth having. Like, why not? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you just made me think actually that um as a parent, if you don't play games and you want to check that this game is appropriate and no, and it's maybe a more obscure one and no one's played it,
mm,
that's actually a really good feature because then you don't have to play it. You just have to say, okay, what will happen if they do this? Are there any like content warnings? Can they play this
yeah,
game?
yeah,
Do I need to save this for them until they're older? And I was like, I didn't think of that, but actually that's another good use for it. But I definitely agree. It's like throw all the things at everything in the kitchen sink. Let's try it out, see if it
yeah.
sticks.
Because I think what another thing is as well, like when they test stuff like that, like the first few versions of it might not be like how we like it, but it could grow into a feature that we end up liking. So yeah, I can't fault them. Like it might not be my bag, it might not be a feature that I ever end up using, but I can definitely see how it could be good for other people.
Mm.
All right, we're half an hour in. Can you believe that? It's already been 30 whole minutes. Um, all right, let's go. We'll go to the next getting to know you
Yeah.
question. So the question is this, yeah. If you could live in a universe of any video game, which would it be and why?
Easy. And it's like, okay, it's between two, but I wish to live in a
You knew
utop.
the answer too quickly.
I've thought about this. I need to live in a utopian world. So it'll either be, because there's a part of me that's like, oh, have you ever heard of the fashion game, the PlayStation One fashion game with Angelica from the Rugrats?
I know Angelica. I can't say I know her game.
Oh my gosh, that game! I enjoyed that game far too much because it's just her making like really mean comments and then like dressing up in you have to like dress up in fashion show and you have to like do a fashion show. Yep.
This.
Totally Angelica. It's so funny. And it's just like you're just running around dressing up and like doing fashion shows with the clothes and like mini games. And it's like there's no you're never hungry, you don't need to go to the toilet. Clearly you don't need to bathe and you don't need to wash the clothes. And it's like this is a utopian world where it's literally just fun, but I feel like that repetitiveness might get kind of bored. And I think you're alone there, which I don't mind. My issue is there are no animals. I can't be alone with no animals. I'm happy to be alone, but give me a bird at least, like out the window or something. So that one is like, it sounds great, but I'm not sure about it. But definitely, I would live in the Sims 3 and only the Sims 3 world just as a
Okay.
NPC, not a playable character, because I don't want people trying to drown me in pools, which seems to be like a classic Sims thing. Like I'm just gonna drown everyone in this pool. It's like no. What if they want to live? And like the worst thing that can happen to you in The Sims is you can get into a fight. And there's no long-term ramifications of getting into a fight. You can't break anything. No one can kill you. Like everybody in The Sims dies of old age. You can't go into minus because the repo man will just come and take things and it will pay your bills and then that's your debt's gone. Or you can sell everything down to the tiles on the floor to make back money, or go and pick up seeds and sell those in your backpack in a magical world where Nobody's poor, everybody can get a job, interviews are not necessary, and you can be self-employed if you feel like it. And just by working hard at something, you gain skills and become the best in your field. It's like I could live there forever. And it's like that's the kind of dream, because it's like, oh, I don't know if you've ever watched Red Dwarf.
Maybe like half an episode at once.
Okay, there's a game in Red Dwarf called Better Than Life, where basically you plug the things into your synapses, which I feel like we're not that far from anyway.
Yeah,
But
far from.
the way the game works is you don't know you're playing it when you get into it, and it looks at your subconscious, which obviously if you're someone who's self-deprecating, it just makes a terrible life for you. So you have to actually like yourself to play the game, and it looks at your subconscious and it creates the perfect world for you based on what would make you happy on a like a subconscious level. And it's called Better Than Life because it tries to make it so you never want to leave the game, or you believe like this is the way your life should be. So if you believe that you are like amazing and successful, the game will make it so you're amazing and successful. And every time you think, oh, this seems a bit odd, the game will do something to be like, oh, but you've just won this amazing award. Don't think about that. Like, come and get this award. And so most people die in the game in the book because they don't know they're playing and they can't get out of it. The only way to leave it is to want to leave the game. But because everything's perfect, why would you want to leave the game? And I feel like that would be what living in the Sims universe would be like. Kind of like, I'm never hungry, I can plant my own food, it will always grow, there are no diseases on the trees. No one, well, apart from with seasons and you get a cold, you can go to the doctors, cold cured. Or you could just lie down for a couple of days. You can change how long seasons last. You can pretend winter doesn't exist and have summer all the time. There's always animals around, and you'll never be kind of like destitute, and it's impossible to be homeless. Like, why would I want to leave the game?
I'll be honest with you. I wasn't sure at this when you started describing it, but when you said about the job interviews, I feel like I was with you there. I was like, okay, you're selling it to me now.
But yeah, what about you? What universe would you pick?
I think we went completely different angles for this because I was thinking of like the kind of food I would like to eat.
Ah,
Yeah, I was thinking of like what kind of food I would like to eat. Um, but also somewhere that would be like fun to be. So like I don't know why, but I kept thinking of like Final Fantasy VII because they have
mm,
all these weird fruits that have like that is only in that world. They have like a banana fruit or whatever, and it's like, what does that actually taste like? Like it looks like a plum crossed with an apple, crossed with like a dumb fruit. Like it looks so unique, and so I was thinking like that, and then I was thinking like in terms of like who I would want to see and meet.
mm.
Like I feel like meeting some of those characters would just be so interesting, and I could like bug them with like stuff that I want to know about them. Um, because you would think like, oh, you'd pick Metal Gear, but like no, because like I love that game, but also it's like the world is always like one step away from nuclear disaster. So like you just
Yeah.
constantly live in a fear of like, someone's gonna blow up the world now. So no. I think it might have to be like, but we're talking like Final Fantasy after everything is solved, like
Okay.
not like peak. Everyone is fighting. We're talking like everyone's dead, like apart from the heroes, all
Yeah.
the bad guys are gone, and we now live in the utopia of that. Like that would be cool. Also, they just have magic lying around, so you can literally just pick up an orb and just like I use magic now, and that's it. So that would be cool. You know what? I think it would have to be. I think it would have to actually. I just thought of one. BioShock.
Really? Why?
BioShock, but no murderers. Yeah, like as in because look, the idea of being in like deep somewhere in the ocean, it's like that whole Atlantis kind of vibe.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like you are in your own society. It's like a, and again, this would be like post. No, well, okay, this would be before everything went to shit. Okay, because the whole point of Bioshock is that it goes to shit, right? So this would have to be like, yeah. I mean, let's put a time limit on it. Let's say that that world was good for a year. I would want to spend 1 year at the peak of it because that's when life was good. You know, you could inject some stuff and you got like powers and stuff. So that would be cool. You could like mess around with that. Um, and if I was being too much of a scaredy cat, I can use like I could watch someone do it. So I was
Mm.
like, oh, I don't want injections. I could still watch someone right next to me like shoot a lightning bolt. I'll be like, whoa, that's crazy. Like you're like a mutant now. And it's that the way they captured like that, like 40s kind of vibe, like it's
Mm.
just walking around and like maybe if I'm able to bring a couple of things with me like a TV or something, yeah, it would be cool. um but yeah, it would have to be before it fell as a society. It'd have to be that. But I feel like I would pick Final Fantasy. I think I just would. Final Fantasy 7. Between 7 or 15.
Mm.
Because they have very similar fruits.
Do you know what? When you were saying that, it made me think. I was like, oh yeah, I could have lobster thermidor and key lime pie
See, the
in
food is a big thing.
in The Sims, and I was like, and if it's cooked well, it will sparkle. And it's like, yeah, I want my food to glitter. And if I can find a life fruit, I could live forever and play every game and read every book. Because you can play video games in The Sims so all of the old Sims video games are on the computers of The Sims. You only see screenshots, but
Uh,
it's like, but then you brought up an interesting point because you were saying, you know, like where would you live in if you had to live there, but then where would you live if it was like for a year or a holiday? Oh my
yeah,
gosh, you
for a
can go on
year or a
holiday
holiday,
in
yeah.
The Sims. I can go to Egypt, France, or China. Those are the only holiday destinations, but doesn't matter. But anyway, for a year, like for life, it would definitely be The Sims 3. It's like I can also do magic. I could become a vampire or a werewolf or a fairy or a genie, which doesn't sound as cool, or a witch. But I digress. For a year. Hmm. Would I want to live in Minecraft for a year? I mean, life would be simple, but just don't make eye contact with Enderman. Live in a hole. Adopt some dogs. Maybe get a
Y-
camel.
You got a problem there because there is no ending to Minecraft, so Enderman will always be there, right?
Yeah, but I'm only living there for a
See,
year.
that's too much anxiety if you ask me.
Well, if you don't make eye contact with them, they just kind of wander around and make noises. They don't bother you. My
Uh,
biggest issue in Minecraft are creepers because they are
okay, so we can say Minecraft with no creepers and no Enderman.
no, no, no. They can live there. I can live with them. That's fine. They live in the world too. I would just like creepers. My issue with them is that they're so silent that like you only for me I only hear them when they're right next to me and I'm like and it's like psst, and I'm like that sounds like a creeper and then it's like boom and it's like it was a creeper. So no permadeath, and so Minecraft with no permadeath because yeah, creepers are definitely going to kill me. Everything else I feel like I could survive. Like with skeletons, the only reason I don't survive skeletons is because I refuse to hold a shield because I'd rather hold arrows and I have to pick one. But that's a me problem. If I was actually living there, I'd have some more like self-preservation and I'd just have a shield. Yeah, I could live in Minecraft for a year, maybe 2 years. Could I live there for life?
See, you'd
Maybe.
think with my answer, like I would pick something like Cooking Mama or something like that, but no, I just feel like
I feel like that'd
the
get
opportunity to
repetitive.
be able to pick up magic and then the fruit food on top, like, is too, like, it's just too convenient.
Yeah, because I think that's the point. It's like you're living there, so this is life now. So you kind of want to have a life outside of everything else as well. Like
Yeah.
somewhere to sleep, somewhere to relax, some like hobbies to do, people to talk to, animals to pet, deer to watch, or whatever. Um,
Oh, actually, now you've said the animals thing, they do have a lot of beasts everywhere.
they live
But
in
you
the
know
world
what? I
too.
think I think I just have to, get used to the magic and then bam. Like you just eventually just, run your area.
Mm.
It'd be like a mafioso, innit? You'd basically slowly like, this is my area, just don't touch my magic. Like, you know what I mean? You can't mine here. Like it would just be like that kind of thing. I'd still pick it, why not? I'd still pick it. Right.
So,
Let's see.
like, when you think of games, what's your favorite game of all time? And like, what about it is it that stands out to you?
Okay, wait. Quick pause. I need to go to the loo. Just give me 2 minutes.
Okay,
2 minutes.
I will fill the
I don't
time
know.
with
Um, maybe Sims 3. I don't know.
interesting. Um, so like when I think about like games and The Sims 3, I was incredibly upset by The Sims 4. Not because it's a bad game, it's an amazing game and there's loads of features in it that kind of brought The Sims forward. My issue is customization. And it's like whenever I play a game, if I cannot have green, red, or purple skin, I am mildly upset. There's something about that ability to be so completely different, so completely like alien. If I can be an alien, that's amazing too. In a game that I absolutely adore, that freedom to be like, I'm just going to be a completely pretend character. And The Sims 3, oh, the customization of the skin, the color wheel, the freedom of having a color wheel, which The Sims 4 gives you like little color palettes, which I hate. And I know that I could upload my own color palettes by modding it. It's like, no. This should be a feature of the game because it immediately breaks the immersion where I have to go into Blender or go into another program and change it around, and it irritates me.
Okay, I'm back.
Hello. I'm just
All
talking
right.
about the lack of customization and the theft, I think, of the color wheel from The Sims 3 to The Sims 4, where they took away the color wheel and gave you color swatches. And it's like, but what if I want it to be red and gold, not red and silver? And it's like, that's your problem, not ours. But what were we talking
Okay.
about? Oh, we were
So we
talking
were talking
about
about.
your favorite game of all time and why it stood out to you.
Okay, so basically that's why I needed to go to the loo because I felt like this is gonna be a big one. Yeah. So it has to be for me
Mm,
Metal Gear Solid as a series. I can't. I'll pick a. Like I'll go for a ranking a different day. I can't. You can't make me pick out of 1 to 5 right now. So I'm not doing that. But it has to be Metal Gear because like I think the quality of the game was just so high from the first one. Like when you look at that time period of like the 97s, like 95s, like when did the first one come out? Like um so trailer. Oh, there you go. 98, yeah. So when you look at the era, like I think it's so easy to find games that were like they were just like making whatever.
mm,
To find a game that bothered with the story, the graphics, the just everything. Like there's so many details in that game as well. There's so many details to a point where like you can play it now and you still find stuff, like still find reactions that you never knew about. And that to me shows that they just so much like care that they just cared about so many different things. They didn't care if 10 people saw it. They just cared that they enough that they were still gonna make it, like how they wanted to make it. So like when you look at that, and then that kind of passion never really left the series until arguably five, which came out around 2015, 2014. So
Mm.
like it always felt like the quality and care was always present, and like that to me makes it so different from so many other games, because I feel like, I'm not saying they don't care, but that passion piece is just, it's just never as strong for me. Like when I see like, oh, you added like, for example, in Metal Gear 2, yeah, this is the Metal Gear 2 came out around 2001, and they had on a bar, so on a like a drinks bar, like a, you know, like alcoholic bar, they had a box of ice. They had a box of ice, yeah. You can find that box of ice, shoot it, the ice will spill out,
Mm.
and then the ice will melt in real time. So if you got an ice cube and you melted it at room temperature, it would melt the same rate as the ice
Wow.
cubes. Yeah, exactly. So like you look at something like that, like who's even gonna notice that it's melting at that rate? Like obviously I know that because of like facts and like watching videos and that
Mm.
kind of stuff, right? But like you, if you're someone who was like, imagine you just discovered that and you found that naturally yourself somehow, which would have been quite hard, but still, like it's just knowing that someone cared enough, or they had the right direction that made it like these details are the kind of details we want in our games. And you know, when we're talking about favorite of all time, for me it just has to be that. And like they always improved as well. That was one other thing that I like seeing as well. That's another thing that makes it stand out for me. Like they always try to improve in a very like meaningful way. So like when you go from like two to three, basically two didn't really have any like facial reactions, right? So a lot of the emotion was kind of done through the dialogue, which is fine. But when you look at three, they knew, okay, we're missing this, and it's such a like a big undertaking. Like I understand that, you know, the technology normally allowed for new advances as well. So it's not necessarily just a case of, oh, they were so passionate that it meant that they were able to do something like this. No, I understand that the technology also allowed them to do things as well. However, like I still respect the fact that they picked like a particular thing,
Mm.
or they picked a bunch of things. Normally, it was a bunch of things that they picked, and they said, "How do we improve this in such a way that the player will like it will improve the player experience?"
Yeah.
Um, and so every aspect of that game was always just better. So it was never a case of like, okay, I'm playing the next one, and now the quality is going down. It was always like the quality is good. So yeah, I think to be honest, if you ask me the right questions, I could probably talk about this one game for like the next, and you know, a whole another hour. So yeah, I'll probably just say it's got to be Metal Gear, and then just the passion stood out to me. The storytelling as well. Like every time, like the main thing I think a lot of Metal Gear fans really like about Metal Gear is the fact that they don't baby you. They give you like some really deep themes to think about. Like the first game was all about like nuclear threat, and like this is like in 97, right? It's about nuclear threat. It's about like how the world could coexist with like a nuclear threat. Um and you know, I replayed it fairly recently, and like if you watch that ending again, like it's so like uh poignant. Is that how you say it? Poignant.
Yeah.
Poignant. Like, it's so like thoughtful. I'm just gonna say thoughtful. It's so thoughtful. Yeah, like you can literally play back the ending of one, and it's so relevant because so many countries have like increased their nuclear like arms and that kind of stuff. And then when you look at when in fact if you look at the ending of Metal Gear 2, there's there's multiple YouTube videos around how basically the whole end of that dialogue has predicted most of what's happened in like the 21st century with the internet and with AI. Like it's
Mm.
predicted so much, and that's made in 2001. So for me, the complicated storylines, and that's what I like in Death Stranding. Like you can see he still has that present because you can see like okay, you're not babying us, and that is what always stood out to me. Like, and I feel like it takes a real master at what they do to have a very complicated storyline but you can still follow it. Like that takes like a genius level person like who can take the most complicated storyline and say, I'm still gonna make this digestible for you. I'm still gonna make it interesting for you to like take in the bits of information. And he never used like cheap storytelling. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, you know, like he was the bad guy all along, like that kind of, that type of thing. It was never cheap. It was always like, okay, this is the character, this is what happened to the character, this is the motivations, and like it was proper good fundamental storytelling, and like it never felt like this is a trick or he rarely was things like retconned, like rare, like they have used it, they have
Mm.
definitely retconned stuff, but like it was always in service of a different aspect of like a story, and it always serviced like the fact that he wanted to tell a complicated story. And maybe we lost that a little bit in number five, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, I honestly could keep going, but I'm gonna say yeah, Metal Gear, and then the absolute masterful storytelling in that game. The gameplay is really good too. Gameplay is really good as well. Like arguably some of the best gameplay in a series. And again, like they improved each time they improved the gameplay like so dramatically. Like five, which gets criticized the most, um, like potentially has some of the best gameplay. So even though the story wasn't quite there,
Yeah.
like you can still see that they still successfully pulled off like the gameplay and how it improved. Like I have my own personal gripes with how the gameplay is, but you can't deny how it improved. Like you can't take that out of the equation. Like they improved it. Like there's some stuff that I would have liked to see brought back from some of the older games, but you know in terms of what kind of thing they were aiming for, whatever their goal was, I feel like they did hit that goal. Whether you like that personally or not, that I think that's a different conversation.
Mm.
And I don't know if I necessarily like some of those, but yeah, like story, gameplay, like the characters, um, just everything about it was so good. And they know it's good because they're remaking it, right? Like they know that they have something special. Like they gave up on it for a few years, but you just can tell you can't leave that IP alone. Like it was pretty much dormant for like 4 or 5 years, maybe longer than that. No, since 2015. So yeah, about 2015, 2014. So we almost went like near enough a decade before we got any information about anything related to it. So they know they have something special, and that's why they're remaking it. Like it just goes without saying. But
Mm.
I think I'm finished. I think I'm finished.
No, 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 it's good. All right. So I have already spoken about my favorite game. It is Orly Draws a Story, and I spoke about it in length. So I pose a different question. If you had to pick, not just in games, but like across all mediums, your top three villains, who would you pick?
Oh, that's hard, yo.
Shall
Wait, do
I?
you have something in mind?
Let me see. Yes, yes, I do. I do. I
Okay,
definitely
go
do.
on.
Okay, so one second. Let me double check name because I'm not great at names. Uh, okay, so definitely Carmen Sandiego. I mentioned that before already.
Okay.
Um, big Mum from the like One Piece universe.
Okay.
Because I just find her a really interesting character, and I feel like a lot of her story is kind of like glossed over because she seems like really fascinating. I want to know more about her. It's like I would read just about her just to see like how she got to that and what her aim was, because like they kind of paint it as like she wanted to create a big family, and it's like, yeah, but now she's trying to create an empire. Like that's a different goal altogether. And I want to know more about how her powers work and kind of like how she decides which races she wants to kind of like join with so that she can create more children. It's like, how do you decide that? What is like the motivation? I need to know your political motivation. What is like, what's the end goal? It's like then you have this whole multicultural country, but like, what is do you want to expand across the world? Are we creating an armada? Are we going to war? And I need to know more. And so I find her a very fascinating character. But then also the sorceress from Spyro, and she's one of my favorite like villains because one of my issues with games like PlayStation 1 games and that kind of era of games is that idea of like, do you know like Mrs. Pac-Man?
Okay.
I think it's called the Smurfette effect or something, but it's that
Oh yeah.
idea of that to make a character female they have to have a certain body type. They have to wear like a bow, or they have to like be have like blonde hair, or like lipstick, or like have
Yeah, yeah,
pink
yeah.
something. And it irritates me so much because it's just like those things aren't necessarily like, you don't need those to say, oh, they're female. It You could just say she, and everyone will be like, oh, recognizes she, her, female. And they move on. Like children are quite smart. They don't need you to put like a big pink bow on it. And so I like the sorceress because um she's a lizard with a crown, and like not a tiara, a proper crown, where holding a scepter, and she does have like eyeshadow, but that's literally it. And it's just that kind of thing that she's also a lizard, that so we only assume that's eyeshadow because she's female. It's like she's a lizard. It could just be her eyes. And she's not wearing any clothes. She's just wearing a ruff. And it's very kind of like gender neutral in a way, because if you told me that was the magician, I would just accept it's a magician. But no, it's the sorceress. And it's kind of like, I like that element of that at that era she didn't have to have like a kind of like hourglass figure and be voluptuous. She was just a big lizard, and that was fine. Oh, you did have to fight her at the end, so that might have been why. But yeah, and so she's one of my favorite villains because it's like she knows her trade. She's pretty good at the magic. She's managed to create an entire empire. Yes, out of fear because she's a tyrannical dictator, but she did it. She did it her way, and I've got to respect that. I mean, I still got to beat her because I'm on Spyro's side, but it's not the point. Definitely one of my favorites.
Okay. So that's one. What else?
So Carmen San Diego, Big Mom, and then Sorceress.
Okay, okay, okay. Uh, I don't know. I mean, are we talking about like antagonists we like to fight against, or are we talking about like they're good at being a villain?
Uh, Up to you. You judge the criteria.
Damn. I
Because like
mean,
being good at being a villain, I Carmen San Diego is good at being a villain, but the other two, I feel like she like the Sorceress is good at ruling, not good at being a villain. Because otherwise, a dragon that's less than the size of her head probably wouldn't have been able to overthrow her or even get to her chambers in order to overthrow her. So, like, yeah, ruling, yes, villainy, no, not for her. Big Mum, I don't know. I feel like her villainy is just kind of like, you're standing in the way of my progress. It's not really like I'm out to get you all.
mm,
So, yeah, I don't think, no, I wouldn't pick them as like the best villains, like for villain's sake.
okay. So I think I'll go for they were good like villain like
Yeah.
they're good at what they do type of villains, right? So I think I have to go for Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII.
Fair enough.
Like I think he's just too. he's too intelligent, like because they never figure out what he's doing until the end, and also he's too powerful, right? Like he's even when you watch him when he's a good guy, like he is still like so much more powerful than anyone else, and they always any chance they get to reinforce how strong he is, they always reinforce it. And so whenever you come up against him, you always feel like this is impossible, like I can't beat him. And then
Mm.
he's got his theme music as well, which is like so dramatic, and like and in the new games they save it specific, like everyone knows the theme song, everyone knows his theme song, yeah.
Mm.
So they will save it specifically. So now not only have you beaten his like two phases and you finally feel like you're gaining some ground, and then bam, they play the theme song for the first time in the in the first in the last 100 hours they ain't played it, but they're playing it now, and you're like, I just thought I was winning, and now you're playing the song and it's making me nervous. Like, why did you have to play it in this part? So he must have a special move that he's about to use that I've not seen. So all of a sudden you're back on the same level. So they've managed to just do it so well.
Mm.
Um, so him as a character, I feel like he's very complicated. He's very layered. He always has a really smart kind of plan. Obviously, he's a villain at the end of the day, so they don't tend to win, right?
Yeah.
Um, so he does obviously lose, but you know, it's just the way he goes about it. He is like he feels like he's an equal. He's a worthy match for the kind of protagonist you are. Um, Number two is gonna be, I think it might have to be Joker. Um,
Oh.
you know what I mean? Like I just think it might have to be because the thing with Joker is like there's so much going on between his head, and you never quite fully understand what's going on in his mind, and that makes it like infinitely more like scary on how you're gonna fix this issue.
Mm.
Um, he's I don't know.
He's
I just
definitely
think
one
it
of the
has to be.
scariest villains.
Like the thing is, like you got to think of Batman, right? You got to think of him as he's like this athletic, like 10 foot tall, like so muscularly built, and like he's got all these great attributes, but somehow Joker still manages to like mentally be on the same level as outsmarting him or killing him, Robin or stuff like that. Like he just always knows how to, like Batman Beyond, right? He implanted his own psyche into one of the Robins when he was torturing him. Like that's a different level of like forward thinking.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So it's yeah, I if you gave me more time, I might be able to think of something else, but I'm gonna go with Joker as well. This one is a deep cut, yeah. This is from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay.
That's not the deep cut, yeah. The deep cut is who I think the villain is, yeah. So basically, you have Ozai, who's the main antagonist of the whole series, yeah.
Mm.
So you got Ozai, yeah. He's like your standard looking evil dude,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that's Ozai. Then you've got Ozai's dad, yeah.
Mm.
No, his granddad, I think it is.
Uh, yeah,
Uh,
I can't remember which one it is.
Let me see. I think it's okay. Anyway, it's his dad's dad or something like that, right? So, okay. So, oh, damn it. Hold on. Uh, I'm gonna get to what I'm explaining, yeah.
That's all right.
And
You take your time.
okay, I found it. So that's you got Roku there, yeah, and then you've got I can't remember his name now, yeah, but that's like the granddad the great granddad or something like that, yeah, of Ozai, the main villain.
Yeah.
I think he is arguably a bigger villain, yeah, than some of the other villains we've seen because they were best friends, yeah. Like they were best, like really think about this, yeah. Wait, hold on. Let me like I'm gonna have this as a picture while I explain this, yeah. Really think about this. They were best friends. He married his sister as well. So not only are they best friends, they're also like in-laws.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what you've got a scenario where obviously he wants to like take over the colonies or whatever, and he wants to take over the world, yeah. And he's like pitching this to Roku, who's the avatar at the time. So so he wants to do this world capturing thing. So they're not friends anymore. They're not friends because one of them wants to become basically a tyrant, and the other one is all about keeping world peace. So they're not friends. They get to old age, yeah. We're talking like 60s or something like that.
Mm.
And a volcano. Do you know this episode? Do you know the episode I'm describing? Yeah.
Briefly, but
Okay. Okay. That's fine.
people, but people
I'm gonna carry
watching
on.
might not.
Okay. Okay. So they're like, and spoilers if someone hasn't watched it, but I don't know why you haven't watched it. It's like 10 years old now. Um, but like really think about this. So now they're in old age. They're not been they were best friends. Got married to his sister. They're now not friends anymore because of this tyrant style thing he wants to do. They're now in old age, so they're very old, and Roku is trying to save his island from a volcano. So this
Mm.
volcano is erupting. Roku is like trying to do this. Yeah, he is struggling to do this. His best friend comes, who is the tyrant. We're just gonna call him the tyrant because I can't remember his name. So the tyrant comes, and he's like, you know what? We're friends now. I'm gonna help you save your island from the volcano. So they together are saving the island. And it's a really heartwarming moment because they're like, you know what? We've not been friends for years because I'm a tyrant, but I'm still gonna save you. Like you're important to me. Like he flew in on a dragon, and he's like, you need a help from an old friend, and like they're friends again. And now they manage to more or less save the island. Yeah,
Mm.
Roku gets hit by volcanic fumes straight into his face.
Mm.
Yeah. He might be a magical, mythical being, but he can't take it. Yeah. He reaches out to his friend. He reaches out to the tyrant, and the tyrant says, with you gone, I can take action with all my plans. And he lets him die. He lets him die on the mountain. Yeah. So, so you, so you, the, by the way, Roku's dragon, loyal AF, because the dragon comes and dies with him. Yeah, like he comes
Oh,
and wraps himself around him and they die together, yeah? Because the volcano ash comes and kills them both. How evil must you be that you just saved your friend, but you now are letting him die because you want to basically dominate the world? Like that to me, because you know what, you can make the case that the subsequent kids of the tyrant they inherited the mindset, yeah? But he
mm.
was the start of the mindset. So Ozai, who is the main villain, like technically he could have been like indoctrinated into that that thing. Whereas the OG tyrant, he killed his best mate. So yeah, I feel like in terms of actual villainy, in terms of like you are evil, like he's quite high up on the list for me because not only did you kill, the balance of the world, your brother-in-law, and like you saved him first. Like what? Like, do you know what I mean? This is too much. It's too much. Like that's
I do wonder if it was all a ploy, and then the conspiracist in me is like, I wonder if he started the volcano attack knowing that his friend was kind enough
nah,
to come and
nah.
help him, because like
Potentially,
sacrificing a few
potentially.
people to get your friend in a position where you can take over is much easier than having a war, and definitely less expensive, more economically viable. you're not losing
Mm.
as many citizens, and then it's not really your fault because it's like, oh, natural disaster, I tried to save you, didn't you see me up there?
So I think, you know what, I think he's probably an underrated villain in the series. Like,
I agree.
I don't think he gets his due because it's so beyond evil to watch your best mate, brother-in-law die at a volcano, and you're right there. You can save him. Like, it's too evil. It's beyond evil.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think we can call it there. Really, I think we
I
more or
was
less hit
just
the hour.
about to say, I feel like we're coming to the end. So, like, thank you for joining me at these early hours of the morning. What time is it where you are? Well, no, it's early for me. I just realised I have joined you at the early hours of the morning.
No, I joined you in the early hours, and you joined me in the afternoon.
Yes, there we go. But yeah. So first episode done and dusted.
I
Admin for
know,
first episode done.
I know. Cut.
But
That's a wrap.
so I would say to end this off, I would love to hear from our listeners kind of what games they were their favorite like games of all time or comic books, like any media. I'm really interested just kind of to think about, different games that we might not have thought about. Because a game I want to speak about at some point is you've played Octodad.
I know of Octodad. I haven't
Yeah,
played it.
but the one that I really enjoyed, and we haven't, and I would like to speak about maybe in the next episode, is Freddy's Spaghetti, where you play as a piece of spaghetti, one singular
Okay.
piece of spaghetti. I don't know if you're. I'm assuming
Maybe
you're
we could make
cooked.
next episode about indie games or something like that.
Yeah, that would be cool. But yeah, so thank you for watching, and do leave in the comments below your favorite games and comics of all time, and we will see you in the next episode on.
Favorite memories too. I love reading memories. Like, it always warms my heart. Like, I always read, like, reading some stuff like, oh, I played this and like this was a time in my life. Like, I love those comments because it's like
Mm,
you can really connect with that person and that period of their life. So memories as well. Yeah, that's what I like to read.
Yep, so memories too. And please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And we will see you in the next episode, which will be live on Monday, but you can watch them all back when we have more than one on our YouTube channel or on our Twitch. And please do check out our Ko-fi if you'd like to support us to help us make more episodes and bring you that fantastic content. Bye.